Welcome back to our podcast. As you may have noticed, the most recent entry in the Wizard of Oz IP, I guess, is not really a franchise, but
No, it's a
Wicked for Good.
franchise.
Nah, that's debatable. Anyways, the newest entry in the IP, Wicked for Good, has been released into theaters. I believe it came out like 5 or 6 ish
Came out
days
like
ago.
last weekend, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of gotten mixed reviews. I want to say I've been seeing a lot of discourse about how it's not really like people either really don't like it or they kind of just think it's okay. But the box office doesn't lie, and it's as of right now I think it's grossed about $220 million already on a like $180 million budget. So I mean, it's doing pretty good. And to be honest, I feel like it was always like I feel like it was always going to do good at the box office, just given how popular the first one was, and everyone was really excited to go and watch this movie. I'm honestly thinking about going and seeing it too, but I have to actually watch the first one.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I haven't watched the first one, but the fact that, like, the reaction is kind of just in the middle, leaning, like, negative wise, really isn't shocking to me. I didn't see the Broadway show with, like, Indina Menzel and shit like that, but I saw it on Broadway when I lived back in New York, and
Oh,
so I saw the show, and when I first heard they were splitting it into two movies, I already knew that the reception for the sequel or like the second part was going to be like this because the second part of the show, and I think many's opinion, including mine, just really is kind of how the opinion is to the second half of the films. Just in the middle, the songs really aren't that good, and it's the part that connects into the Wizard of Oz. So you're starting to see all of those events, and I'll leave it at that because I feel like people have been getting annoyed with spoilers. But yeah, I just,
that always makes me laugh.
dude, I think it's really weird because it's been a show that's been on Broadway since what, like 2006,
It's been on for
2007.
like at least 20 years,
Yeah, and
if
it's
not
and
longer.
and it's still such a huge national show as well. Like it's touring the country constantly, so it's not like it's just Broadway at this point. And so I don't know, the reception is not that shocking to me because I didn't think the second half of the show was any good to begin with.
That's kind of
So
what I've heard as well. I've never seen it, the musical, and I've never read the book either. And my understanding as well is that the second half of the or the second act or whatever of the play isn't really a lot of people's favorite part of the show.
there's a reason why like all the trailers have sucked. Like there's no song after Defying Gravity that ever comes close to being as good or even as iconic. And
Mm.
so I think they inherently like put themselves in like a bit of a pickle there because they sold that first film so much on Defying Gravity that nothing is better than that. So when they got to the sequel, they're like, "Damn, how do we sell the story when the story isn't even as good?" And so that's why I'm like, oh, okay, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I just think that there was too much hype going into it for it not to, at least for the first week be doing these good numbers. We'll see how things continue to play out. Going into its second week at the box office, see if it still, is pulling in the numbers. But anyways, side tangent aside, today we were talking about the it's not the original iteration of this um IP, I guess, but it is probably the one that most people are familiar with outside of like Wicked. So we're talking about the 1939 The Wizard of Oz, which I think is directed by Victor Fleming. And then we were talking about its 46-year sort of sequel. I mean, Return to Oz,
I'd like to
and
call it the Disney sequel because like
it
it's
it
a sequel,
it
but
is, but it isn't really. We'll talk about it.
exactly.
But anyways, I think last week I may have, and if I have to go back and listen to it, and if this isn't true, then maybe I'll just cut this part out. But um, I'm pretty sure last week I misattributed this movie to Frank Oz. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a very famous puppeteer. He did Yoda, and he worked with Jim
Hmm.
Henson on a lot of stuff. But he's also a director. He's directed some of the Muppets movies, I'm pretty sure. He directed The Dark Crystal with Jim Henson and yada yada yada. Anyways, but this movie is actually directed by Walter Murch, who you should know who he is because
Oh yeah.
he's one of the few people that we've heard his name several fucking times over the past 4 years. But funnily enough, this is his one and only movie that he directed. Like, this is his directorial debut and also the only movie he ever directed. And it's
God help
probably
his soul.
because I don't think he had a very good time making this movie. Um, I think he fought with Disney, like the higher ups at Disney, while making this movie quite a bit.
I mean, to be fair though, both of these films kind of had disastrous like
Productions.
productions. Yeah,
I don't think this
like
one's nearly as
as
disastrous
bad.
as the first one,
Wizard
but
of
I
Oz was pretty
definitely
bad.
don't think that this one, like, I've heard some things about it, like, the TikTok dude, um that whole like get up for the costume and
So
the
I haven't heard like
puppeteering.
anything about Return of Oz other than like what you were mentioning before that it was chaotic. I know much more of like the bad stuff with the Wizard of Oz. So inform me on like the Return to Oz stuff because I'm not like well
I mean,
versed in it.
I don't know too much, but I know that at one point Walter Murch was fired. I
Oh
think pretty
wow.
early on in the production because of like budget, or maybe it was like they didn't like the direction that the film was going in. I've heard conflicting arguments about this movie. I've heard some people say that it's too close to the source material, which is another thing we should talk about. Obviously, The Wizard of Oz is not an original um, idea. The 1939 version of the film, and as well as this one, are adaptations of the book series aptly titled The Oz Books, written by L. Frank Baum. I'm hoping I'm saying that name right.
No, yeah, you got it right.
Um, but anyways, so the obviously the Wizard of Oz from 1939 is adapting the first book in the series, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, from 1900, and then the Return to Oz is kind of a mix of the second and third books, Jesus Christ, the Marvelous Land of Oz, and Ozma of Oz. That being said, I think both of them are still pretty kind of like loose adaptations of the books, as far as I'm aware. Anyways, so yeah, Walter Murch got fired at one point, and then he had to like. This is kind of funny, like thinking about, but he kind of like called his three friends, Francis Ford Coppola, Steven Spielberg, and George Lucas, and asked them to like advocate for him to Disney, and so they rehired him. Um, and yeah, he got to make the movie. Um, but even then, I don't think Disney really liked what the end result was, and I'm pretty sure they kind of just let it out to die in theaters.
Well, yeah, to go back to what you were mentioning about how both of these films are loose adaptations of the books, Wizard of Oz is much different from The Wonderful Wizard of Oz than I think Return to Oz is to Land and Ozma of Oz. As like Return to Oz sticks much more to the world and like I don't want to say goofy characters because Wizard of Oz is also goofy, but like this steampunk like this world is much more closer to the vision of that dark fantasy realm that I think they wanted. But in that original Return, not Return to Wizard of Oz, the original Wizard of Oz, Jesus Christ. This is going to become a tongue twister at some
Yeah.
point, and it's really going to get on my nerves. But when the Wizard of Oz, I think it took the liberties of being, I don't want to say like more kiddish and more child friendly because that's not like the proper word, but to bring it back to like some of the staples of what made Wizard of Oz like the film outside of being a musical and Judy Garland. But let's not forget Wizard of Oz was the like the first use of the 3 strip Technicolor, which
Oh
is the
yeah,
first
yeah.
time that like true color came onto film. And it this is probably one of the most iconic films of all time, and is probably the iconic film of all iconic films, right? Like when
I
you
mean,
think of
yeah.
old Hollywood, you think of Wizard of Oz, and you always have the iconic shot of Dorothy opening the door after crashing into Oz, and you see all this big, bright, beautiful colors of the Yellow Brick Road, the Munchkins, the Munchkin Land, and it really just sucks you in a way that I think Return to Oz doesn't, and I think that's why Wizard of Oz, I think, took some of those creative liberties, because I found myself caring about Oz as a whole much more in the classic film than I do in Return to Oz. We'll get to Return to Oz at some point again because I have a lot of thoughts on that film. It's very interesting, but I've never really talked about Wizard of Oz with anyone, so I think this is just like a generally interesting conversation because as influential of a film as Wizard of Oz is, as we were mentioning before, what a chaotic production experience this
Honestly,
film was.
I think it's a miracle this movie like actually was finished. Like they got through all of production and released
The
it.
the fact that certain people came out like alive by the end of this film, like living people and breathing, and the fact that it came out as good as it did is probably one of the most shocking things in cinematic history that I could ever think is relevant, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even know where to begin with
I was
this.
gonna say let's start at like the biggest. I think I'm trying to think of a word for it because it's been told like the rumor or like
Oh, you talking about the
the Munchkin,
Munchkin,
yeah, the
the
hanged
suicide
Munchkin,
one? All right.
yeah.
So listen,
It,
I don't want to
I know
spend
it's
too much time talking about
well,
this
no,
because it has
it's
been
fake.
yeah, it
Well,
has been
it's not
debunked.
fake. Like there's something back there, but it's not
It's a
like a
bird.
person. Yeah, it's not a person hanging
It's very
themselves.
easy to see that it is a bird. Like this is just like some weird early internet like urban legend that was going around. And
Went around for a while too.
yeah, it's but it's long since been debunked. There and it's very easy to see now with the upgrade in technology. Like I watched this on Prime, so I saw it in HD, and I'm sure if you watch it on a 4K TV, it would maybe be
You could see
even
the whole
better.
beak.
But yeah, it's and it even went as far as like people were spreading around altered versions of that shot to make it look more like there was something like hanging in the background. Anyways, yeah, it just to me it doesn't make sense why people would think that because like I mean it just using context clues you're just like you would just be like why is there some random munchkin extra on set that day. Also, you can clearly tell that the sets are very finite. There's a point where the set ends and the massive like mural wall background begins. So it doesn't really make sense for something that would have been so obscured, like minus the technical issues of the time in terms of like resolution, for something to be so obscured in camera, like it would have to be so much farther back than it actually is. You get what I'm saying? So I don't
No,
know.
no, yeah.
There's just so
I
many ways to break down why this is dumb, and that's kind of why I don't really want to talk about it too much.
but
There's definitely
it's just
there's
the
more
internet.
interesting things that actually happened on the set of this movie that I think warrant like further discussion.
No, yeah, I just think it's interesting because I don't think I've ever seen a bigger internet like rumor about a film than I'd seen about like an apparent Munchkin actor hanging themselves in the background
Mm,
and no one knowing about it. Apparently, like just that inherently is creepy, and I think this is where the idea of just like human nature grasping onto these really weird and kind of horrifying ideas, like think about Bigfoot, the Yeti, like all these really stupid ideas that man has made up that we all inherently know is stupid and probably not true. Hey, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Bigfoot and the Yeti aren't true. You know, I'm not going to go to the mountains and shit like that and search for it myself. So I'm not gonna count them out just yet, y'all. But it's just that idea of creating a narrative or uh, an urban legend almost that I think is interesting with it. And yeah, it is stupid, but I think it being attached to the film or like this story and idea being attached to this film itself is kind of creepy because if you watch it thinking that someone or an actor that is a munchkin or dressed as a munchkin is hanging in the background that no one noticed, which is, yeah, a stupid inherently an idea that, wow, I don't know why people believe that no one noticed that a munchkin was hanging themselves in the background. But that's why I think it became so big, and I just think it's an interesting grasp into our culture in internet society. Um, but yeah, I do agree that there's a lot bigger and crazier stories worth discussing. And to kind of lean into those, I think a lot of them lean into the Dorothy actress, Judy Garland. How much do you know about her, her role in the film?
I mean, not as much as some of the other ones, but I mean, I know the big thing that I know of is that the producers were essentially like giving her just hard drugs so that she could
Lose
stay
weight
awake
and lose weight
to
too.
yeah, and lose weight, because that was and that's another thing. Her costume was really uncomfortable for her because they're trying to like make her appear more like a prepubescent like teenager even though she was like 20 or something.
Well, that's what I don't get because they originally wanted Shirley Temple in the role. And those are
Mm.
two wild. And you can see this idea in the Return to Oz film, and where outside of Wizard of Oz being a musical, how this film kind of differs from the books itself. And this is where I was kind of confused at like, how do you guys go from Shirley Temple to Judy Garland? Like, I know why because of the red hair and the color red, but like in terms of age range, it's very interesting to me.
I mean, what I'm seeing on Wikipedia is that it does show that of the several actors which were considered for the part of Dorothy, they did include Shirley Temple from 20th Century Fox, the most prominent child star at the time, Deanna Durbin, a relative newcomer with a recognized operatic voice, and Judy Garland, the most experienced of the three. Officially, the decision to cast Garland was attributed to contractual issues. It doesn't explain what those contractual issues are. So I don't know if that was like the other two weren't available, or maybe they had a pre-existing contract with Judy Garland to have her be in like a certain amount of films for them or something. I don't know. Um, I'm not really sure what 20th Century Fox has to do with any of this because this is an MGM movie. Um,
Well, I'm trying to find if I can like confirm this, but
confirm what?
so I don't know if you know this or ever heard of this, but the Over the Rainbow song, the
Oh, somewhere over the
notorious
rainbow.
Somewhere Over the Rainbow that's sung at the beginning of this film is not Judy Garland singing. Did you know that? And
I feel like I've heard about it
I
before. I
forgot who
don't.
is the actual singer.
Hold
And
on, let
I
me look at. Let me
and
look.
I find it interesting because Judy Garland, I think, sings the rest of the songs, and I can't remember what the story is behind why they chose a different singer to like overdub her voice in the film for this, because I think she might have been sick, or Judy couldn't get to like the right octave or whatever the note was for what the song was. There was some wild story behind why Judy didn't sing the song Over the Rainbow in the final cut, but I can't seem to find anything to confirm it.
I
So
mean,
I was
everything I'm seeing seems to suggest that it is her. It sounds like her. Well, the recording. I'm
it
so
does.
I'm
I don't
not. I
know.
think I'm
I
pretty sure it is her.
I'm putting that out there cuz I feel like I've heard that somewhere. I'm 50-50 on it. Music,
This is what happens when we talk
explosives.
about like 100-year-old movies.
Well, yeah, that's kind of crazy to think that this film's what 1934, right?
1939. So it's
1939.
not exactly 100 years, but it's getting
But
close.
it's getting damn near close, and to
Yeah,
think that this film is not even within 100 years, and it feels like such a technological historical piece is kind of crazy, right?
yeah.
But aside from the musical stuff at the beginning, um, to get into some more of the onset abuse that apparently went on. Over the past decade since the film's release, there's been a bunch of credible sources that have been coming out that Judy endured extensive abuse during and before filming. As we were saying before, they tried to like bind her stomach together because they wanted her to look like this petite child. Like they're going back to the whole um trying to get like Shirley Temple, like the different ages, like they were trying to make a grown woman into a child, and it's kind of weird. And I don't really understand it. Like they even went as far as to like binding her chest to make her seem like she has smaller breasts, and giving her I'm gonna kill this fucking drug name, Benezadrine tablets to help keep her weight down, along with uppers and downers, causing giggling fits. So yeah, she was drugged up the entire time, um,
Well,
and
they also
apparently,
like gave her like fake teeth to wear, or false teeth that fit over her like upper teeth.
yep,
Because I think they were like her real teeth are a little misaligned, and then
yeah.
apparently there's also like these rubber discs that they made her put in her nostrils to like change the shape of her nose, which is just fucking crazy. Like the amount of stuff that they did to like change the way she looked is just
Well,
odd.
the thing that like frustrates me and like really kind of disgusts me about the behind the scenes is it wasn't just the producers and like the people that aren't making the film inherently with their hands, but there's like the infamous story of Victor Fleming. um Judy Garland was having like one of her drug induced giggling fits,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. It's
during one
during
of their
the
scenes,
it's
it's when
during the introduction of the Cowardly Lion.
yeah, when they were filming that, she couldn't stop laughing and ruined so many takes that it got to a point where Victor Fleming just got so frustrated with her that he just slapped the shit out of her to get her to stop. And it's really hard to talk about, I think, because of all the abuse that she endured from so many different members of the cast, and and to see the film that was made is just so wild to me. I just can't comprehend it at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, it is very odd going back and watching this, knowing all of this. I I don't know. It makes for a really uncomfortable watch sometimes when you get to the points in the movie where you're like, oh, this is really cute and fun, but then you realize that in order for us to get it, it was made with like the blood, sweat, and tears of all of these people. Like there's so many times where you're kind of just sitting there and just being like, damn, Judy Garland had to be drugged for all of this to happen for really no reason. Like I don't I you know it just feels so weird to think about nowadays that someone felt it was appropriate to like physically um I guess discipline one of the actors for like I had just in my opinion trying their best to like make it work, if that makes sense. And I don't know, I just it's really odd. And
Well,
obviously things have changed a little bit, but I just I don't understand what the reasoning behind that is of just like, oh, I need to slap the shit out of this poor person to get them to do this correctly.
well, to add like salt to the wound, unfortunately, to add on what you were saying about how she wore like false teeth because her teeth were misaligned, for every film she did for the next 5 years, she was always required to wear those false teeth and wear those
The
the
discs.
discs in her nose. So she always had like that same facial structure that she does in this movie. And it just makes it all the much more like upsetting the more like you look into this film, because of like how I think this film is kind of viewed like in the public as it's a child friendly film. You always want to show your children like we were always bashing on the Vegas dome AI generated version of it. But I keep seeing videos of people taking their children to see and being like, oh, I'm creating whole new memories of a movie that I watched when I was younger, but in a different way. And I'm like, dude, this is crazy to think about a film that we perceive as this childlike innocence to it to have so much like painful, horrific memories associated with how it was made. It is just kind of like the night and day of it all. It's just so weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's not even covering half of it, man. Like
No, dude, that's
the
only one
stuff that
actor.
like the Judy Garland stuff is a whole different level of fucked up because that to me is far more like emotional and psychological damage and trauma that and then there's just so much other stuff that you're just like fuck man, how did any of that happen? Like I'm pretty sure almost every major member of the cast was injured in some shape or form. I know that
Well,
uh,
Jack Haley, who played the Tin Man, the silver stuff they used to turn his skin silver, I think it was like 15, 20 years after this film was released, eventually killed him because they used like some super toxin to create it and it just
I
like
think it had lead in it.
simmered. Yeah, it was
I'm pretty
lead.
sure it had lead
Yeah, it was lead.
because well,
And
even like
gave
regular
him lead
paint.
poison like over the time of 15 years because he wore it for so long over
Yeah,
the
well,
course
he
of a
wasn't
year.
the. That's the other thing too. He wasn't the original actor that they
Well, none
cast
of
in the
them were
role,
either.
and the original person that they cast had to drop out because he had such a bad allergic reaction to the Tin Man makeup that he couldn't wear it. And so they hired Jack Haley to come in, and he was able to like, wear it throughout the production. But he there were side effects to that later in his life. Um, and I know, fuck, I can never remember her name. Um, what's the name of the
Margaret
woman?
Hamilton,
Yeah,
the
Margaret
wicked.
Hamilton. She was burned really badly in that one shot where she vanishes from the Munchkin Land
It's
town or
her first
whatever.
one.
Yeah, the it's the only time that in the movie where the effect uses pyrotechnics, and so it's the red smoke would come out, and she would fall through a trap door in the floor of the set, and then after she was safely underneath the floors, they would shoot up the flames. but in one take, the I think the trap door didn't like it malfunctioned or something, and so they fired on the pyrotechnics before she had completely fallen through, and she got like severely burned,
Burned
and they
her
had
entire
to
face, I'm pretty sure.
it burned like a lot of her, like not just her face, and so they had to rush her to the hospital, and I'm yeah, she had to be treated for like serious third degree burns.
I'm also pretty positive it ruined her career. Like she couldn't act anymore,
I don't think that because
or
I'm
or
pretty sure
it
she acted in other stuff.
or it like really hindered her career at the very most. I know that. It's just crazy to hear all these behind the scenes about this film, but let's get into the actual film itself. Leo, what'd you think?
Of the movie overall.
Yeah. I just don't
I
know how
mean,
else to
it's
transition into that after all those
I think it's
conversations.
still a good movie. I know I texted you this morning, and um the editing is a little it's a little odd at times. There's definitely parts where you can tell that continuity was kind of thrown out the window, and I'm not really sure if that's a choice or if people just weren't paying attention. But it's definitely something that you notice nowadays. But there's one moment at about 12 minutes and 30 seconds into the movie when Dorothy is talking to that Marvel dude. And there's a cut from one shot to another that is very obviously like cutting something out of the scene, and even the next line of dialogue that Dorothy has, it's clearly her responding to something that we did not witness happen because they cut it out, and it really threw me off guard. While I was watching it, I kind of had to like rewind because I wasn't sure if I had missed something, and then when I realized that there was an obvious cut, I started thinking to myself, I was like, did Amazon censor this movie? Because I was watching it on Prime, but I couldn't find anything about it, and so I was just like, I they must have just cut something out of the movie for some reason and kind of just like haphazardly stitched it back together. And it's just really odd to me. There's moments like that in the movie where you can see obvious like continuity errors, and I noticed them so much this time around that it actually affected me later in the movie when there were intentional continuity errors. I don't know if you remember, but when the gang arrives at the Emerald City and they first are let in through the gate, they meet the like stagecoach driver who's played by um fuck what's his name hold on, what's his name, Frank Morgan, the guy who plays Professor Marvel, Wizard of Oz, the gatekeeper, and the Wizard's Guard as well. And he's talking about this horse that's pulling the carriage that is like I think it's like the horse of many colors or something like that. But the gimmick is that the every time the shot cuts back, the horse's hair color has changed. But when I was first watching it, I didn't realize that, and I had gotten so used to seeing kind of minor continuity
You're just like
errors
these fucking
that when
idiots,
it
bro. They
cut,
gave
because
up.
we see it ride up with the carriage and it's like white, like pure white, and then in the next shot that we see it, it's like bright purple, and I stopped for a second and I was like, these motherfuckers forgot to paint the horse purple in the last shot. But then it kept happening and I realized that was like
The
that
gimmick.
was intentional, and then I was just like, I kind of feel like my wonder in that moment was ruined by the constant continuity errors. Anyways,
Yeah. Well, that's the problem with it being so old at this point and us being so technologically advanced. Our TVs are so high definition now, is we can see through all of the crappiness that kind of camouflaged all of the issues back then. You
Yeah.
know, like how a lot of people watch 80s films now or like 70s films and they're like, oh, it just didn't age that well. It's like, well, yeah, bro, it's because you can see the fucking PA sitting in that fucking dark ass corner back there now because of all this high resolution fucking 6K shit, bro. Like, yeah, no shit. Back then in the 80s, like, you had all this static and shit covering the shadows. Like, you had so much stuff back in the day that you didn't have to worry about because technology wasn't that advanced, that they weren't thinking about, damn, what's this going to look like in 100 years from now almost. Here we are almost like being like, damn, bro, this looks like fucking shit. What were you
I
guys
mean,
doing back
I don't
then?
it's not I'm not trying to say that it looks bad because I think even watching it nowadays, I'm still quite impressed and in awe of like the technical qualities of the film. Like even though I can tell that the backgrounds are painted
A
onto the
stage?
walls. Yeah, and it's all shot in a stage. It still looks very well done. And there are moments where you're kind of just like, yeah, that kind of looks like, you know, the land of Oz. And I think it also adds to the style of it as well.
Well, I was about to add, I think for a film that, like, I think it's the biggest complaint is it feels very studio ishy. Is like it all feels like it's a set in the studio. It's really shot well. Like,
Yeah,
I know it's
there's
kind
so
of
much intricate camera movement that I was impressed by.
yes, especially once you get to Oz, like once you get introduced to Munchkinland, and it's once you get into the Follow the Yellow Brick Road song and having her do the little skip trace and the camera like follows her as she starts at, like, there's all this small intricate stuff that like we don't think or consider about now is because we have like dollies and all these really intricate setups that can help us make these really fluid motions that now when we watch them we don't think too much about. But back in the days, like, man, they were really getting the audience into this world and environment for not being able to have the space that they're trying to create, that I think also works in their favor, that might not be helping them at the same time with them being in the studio. And it helps with it being a super colorful film, with it being the first not the first Technicolor film. So that being its like biggest strength, I think can kind of, for me, get over the fact that, yeah, you know what, I do see the corner of the studio over there in the far left. you know, I do see
Yeah.
where like the shadow of the light kind of creeps in because it's the edge of the building. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, even to this day, like just all of the grand moments really still land for me. The tornado sequence at the beginning of the movie is still like very intense and very like frightening to me. And just the way that the tornado is like kind of constantly in the background, and you've got all of this just practical um wind and shit flying around. Like you can really tell that they're doing their best to make it all look real, and I think there's a lot of moments where it does look real. And then you just get to the part where she's like banging on the cellar door, and all of a sudden the background gets really really like um hazy and dark, as if like the tornado is moving like really really close, and that really caught me off guard. I was like, oh damn, that's like oddly realistically frightening. And then obviously her entering into Oz the first time, it just every single time they enter a new location, you really can tell that they spent a lot of time and consideration figuring out like what sets this specific place apart from the other ones, and how do we make this as visually interesting as like humanly possible.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's what makes this more enjoyable. I think outside of the songs, because I'll be honest, the characters really don't do it for me. Like, it's as basic as it gets with each individual character's wants and needs in terms of creating a story, but it just felt a little too bare bones for me to really care all too much. Um, like I like Dorothy, I like the line, I like all that. Like I want them to succeed in the end, but I don't know. I don't feel that emotion of success that you get at the end of some movies, especially when you have a quest at the end. At least that's what I feel like. Like by the end of this film, I feel like I should feel good that Dorothy's going back, but I don't feel that it's good. And I think Return to Oz only kind of solidifies that feeling for me. Um, and so I don't feel like the ending really works for me at the end of the day. I don't know if that makes sense at all.
I mean, it does. I agree with what you're saying. I think my only issue with the ending is that I don't think the movie does a good job of explaining to us why Dorothy should go back, because a lot of the beginning of the movie is her kind of feeling like,
She shouldn't be there.
yeah, like she shouldn't be
Like,
there. Like her family kind of really don't care what she has to say, and yada yada yada. And yeah, you're right. Return to Oz is way worse because they fucking sent her to electroshock therapy.
yeah, bro,
That's
they
fucked.
should have say, bro, bitch, you crazy, get shocked. And uh, mm, I'll get into
But
that
yeah, I
later.
just
Yeah,
so the ending is a little weird, and I don't think it does a good job of explaining, her motivation in deciding to actually go back. Like I know she kind of explains it, like like the lesson that she learned, but I don't know. I maybe I just kind of missed what the point of it was. But I mean, on the other side though, I do really like the characters still. You're right; they are kind of bare bones, but it is a children's story, and but
yeah.
I
So was
like.
it Return to Oz, bro, and they almost straight up fucking kill the girl.
But yeah, I like all of the characters well enough for me to root for them. I like their dynamic with each other. Um, I do kind of wish we had a little more time with them because the structure of the movie is a little weird at times. You have
Oh, I hate the structure, bro.
she just happens to meet all of the
Well,
characters one after the other,
and it
and
has to happen
and
in that
then
order.
pretty much immediately after the main group assembles, like all of them, they immediately arrive at the Emerald City, and I was kind of left kind of wanting a little bit more. I get that the movie is already kind of long, which I didn't realize this movie was like an hour and 47 minutes. I thought it was maybe going to be an hour. But anyways, so I do kind of wish we had a little more time, but I think it all works decently well in the end. I do like the moment where um, Oz, the Great and Powerful, is gifting the other three um, things that kind of hold up his end of the bargain. It's kind of cheeky, and I also liked the way that it sort of made their stories a little more full circle than it really ends up doing with Dorothy's, which is interesting considering she's the main character. But anyways,
For some reason, my mic was muted. I don't know why, but for something that bothers me in this movie that feels like they set it up so well is this idea that the family members in Kansas play the animals and counterparts in Oz, and I really thought they were going to try and do something with that, but I don't really feel like they do, or at least at the very most I missed it because it doesn't feel like the characters who are the same in both reality, not the same in both realities, but like how her uncle plays like the lion or like the Tin Man in
the
Oz
Scarecrow.
or the Scarecrow, yeah, whichever one it was. I wish they did more with connecting those in Dorothy's story to make it more prevalent about why she could have gone back. You know, like maybe work that in because they are the same actors, but it seemed like they didn't like think about that, or like it might have been too much of an idea. Like maybe this is just hindsight 70 years later or something, but
I mean, honestly, the only reason it's like that is because at the
They were cheap.
time, they know at the time they didn't feel that audiences would be able to like fully grasp the idea of a completely alternate
Role with an
reality.
actor.
No, an alternate reality where this fantastical world exists alongside the real world. So they just decided to sum it up by like it was all a dream. That's really the only reason it's like that. Um, and Return to Oz is a little more similar to the source material, from my understanding, in that it does treat it as a real world, like an alternate world that she can travel to. Although it is a little muddled by the fact that they also do reuse actors as well, or at least some of them.
Well, like they
Um,
pick and choose too, so that's like it's
yeah,
really weird. I
it
don't
does.
know.
It does annoy me that her aunt and uncle aren't in um, Oz at any point, but then like some of the other characters are. Um, yeah, I don't know. I can understand what they were going for. I don't think it works quite as well. And again, you're right. It is 2020 hindsight. um,
No, it's 70-year hindsight, not 2020 in this case.
yeah, I don't know. I just I don't know how to continue this thought.
No, you got it. I believe in you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really awkward at the end when, and you and I, it also might be because you and me, having just got out of film school, we've heard everyone complain about the whole like it was just a dream ending. You know what I mean?
Well, that's
Um,
the funny part is like I feel like that's like the last thing I really find myself complaining about with the film whenever I watch her. Like the thing I'm kind of least bothered by is because maybe that's like such a maybe this is another hindsight thing where it feels like it's been such a over cliched thing that at this point I really don't care enough. But I don't know. I don't think the it's all a dream really bothers me all that much. Or maybe it's because after watching Return to Oz, I know what the intention is afterwards, just frying the little girl because they think she's crazy. And that's like a definitive answer. I don't know if I wanted, but hey, it's a definitive answer that I wasn't expecting, so I give him that. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't really care. The songs are really good. I still think they're all
most of
really
them are.
relevant. I think I'll say, dude, somewhere over the rainbow, absolute banger.
I think the only song in this movie that I really didn't like was the weird what's it called? It's the one where he's singing about being king in
Oh yeah, the lion,
yeah, the
right?
lion. What is it called? Yeah, if I were king of the forest. That song is really not good, and it's not helped by the fact that it's kind of like us just waiting for the guard dude to come back and tell them if Oz will see them. And I remember it it's just slows down the movie for like 3 or 4 minutes for no reason, on top of it not being really that great of a song. And I really, really didn't like that. It like I remember sitting there watching there, and I was like, okay, you guys should have cut this out. Like there's no point to the inclusion of this song. We already know what the lion wants, and it kind of just felt like a repeat of that, just to like kind of fodder out the plot or the runtime. Um, but all the other songs are decent. I will say I think the what is it called? Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, or whatever. The song that all the Munchkin sings at the beginning. That one goes on for a tad bit too long, but it's whatever. It gets points for being funny about being them essentially celebrating the murder of a person.
Every time I watch this, like I always let out a little laugh when all these like little tiny munchkin people like pop out of like all these little different spots and then just hover around this essentially 12-year-old redheaded girl who just fell out of the fucking sky on top of one of the wicked witches, and you guys are all just cheering for her, circling her like some kumbaya, saying "Ding dong, the witch is dead." Like, bro, that's just fucking crazy. And this is a kids' film.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the part that I find really funny is that this is this is very clearly made for kids, but I think a lot of kids probably are just not really understanding the gravity of the situation. Like they really they're really really happy that this bitch is dead.
yeah, no, like on God, bro. They're like, have you ever seen that like Instagram meme of like this Hispanic guy who like I think I've sent it to you before, where he like wipes the floor really slow and it's got like this song that has like a totally different context of what's going on, and he just walks by and there's like this car that just boots up behind him as he just like goes to the beat.
I don't know what you're talking.
Oh, bro! If I ever run into it again, I'm gonna refer to it as like this is what I was referring to during the podcast. But I don't know. It's just so funny. It's like they wiped the floor with this bitch. But
Anyways,
should we get to Return to Oz?
yeah.
I'll let you
So
go.
you and me have never seen this movie before, have we?
I've never seen it. All I know is it was fucking crazy. You know.
This movie is a little infamous for being the source of a lot of childhood trauma over how surprisingly dark it is. Um, and it's kind of understandable why like you've got a woman that like changes heads. Like that's I like it, but it's weird and it's easy to see why, you know, kids and parents would have been a little like, this is weird, too weird for my, you know, 5 year olds to be watching.
Well,
Um,
bro, I was shocked at how fucking dark this film is, just straight off the rip. They're just going, Dorothy, you're crazy. We don't believe you. You got mental issues. Let's fry her. And this is all just like the first 20 minutes. So you're
well,
like,
yeah, like the opening of the movie is so weirdly unsettling for no reason because you've got the fact that she's, you know, suffering from insomnia, um, and
I want to go back to
the
Oz.
actress that they got to play Dorothy in this
Not
movie.
good.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not saying that she's not good.
No, I'm saying she's
I
not
think,
good. No,
I
I'm
think,
saying that. I hate to say that about like children actors, but like man, and it's not just her. Everyone is bad in this movie. No one's good.
I just think she has a unique like face that results in the opening feeling very like it adds to the eeriness of the film. Um,
Well, I
because
I
she just
think
kind of seems unfazed by everything for the most part, which is just really odd when you can tell that like the nurses and the orderlies are trying to like, you know, treat her like a little girl, and then but they kind of don't realize that she knows that something is off. um but yeah, speaking of casting though, do you know the woman that's playing the head nurse and Mombi?
oh god, should I?
Have you ever seen Willow?
Oh god, yeah.
So
It's been a while,
she
but
plays the main antagonist in that movie. Her name is Jean Marsh,
oh wow, I
and
didn't know that.
I I I immediately recognized her. She's a lot younger in this movie because I think that movie came out in like what? It was in the 90s, like 98.
Willow?
Oh no, it came out. It
No,
came out in
80s.
88. Damn.
Yeah, I'm like,
She looks a lot younger in this movie, but I recognized her almost immediately, and I was like, "Is that fucking her?" Um, but anyways, yeah, I thought that was an interesting fact. I just wanted to bring that up.
yeah. Going back to your point before about the girl who plays Dorothy and the super dark tone and how like sh- the way she's playing it is like kind of oblivious, or like she's like not in like this realm or something like that, is it's really hard to dissociate anything related to Wizard of Oz that isn't the first one. So just the inherent vibe, the genre, the actress, like it's not even just the actress, but just the age. It's weird seeing Dorothy being like actually viewed as a 12-year-old girl in this movie, as
Mm.
opposed to like Dorothy being like someone dressed as a 12-year-old girl, because you can clearly tell Judy Garland's not like a little girl in that movie, as they try to tell you. And
No,
that's
yeah.
every time I watch it, is I always think she is a grown-ass woman whenever all those events are happening. So I forget in the story she's supposed to be played as a 12-year-old girl. So going into Return of the to Oz, I'm just like, oh, this is really fucking weird to have all this really dark stuff to be happening all of a sudden in this story that, yeah, inherently has dark undertones, was a relatively like joyous and bright film. And even when you go back to Oz, like, bro, I don't know if you'll get this joke, but literally at the end when they turn Emerald City back on, it literally just looked like they just turned on a little town in Long Island back on after a power outage. And I'm just like, bruh, come on. This is like so far and away a different vibe from what the first one is, that it's hard to set different expectations because of what the original film had already done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is the problem. The main problem with this movie, in my opinion, is the fact that it like we were talking before, it is and it isn't a sequel to The Wizard of Oz. So it's just odd, and they spent like a lot of money like paying royalties towards MGM so that they could use the ruby slippers in this movie.
Oh
And
god, those ruby
that
slippers.
feels like I don't understand why, when this movie really doesn't have anything to do with the original Wizard of Oz. It really is more of an adaptation of the books, and I think even the making the decision to like to make this movie as like a pseudo sequel or semi sequel or whatever is just an odd choice, because if you're not going to make it a direct sequel to The Wizard of Oz, then I feel like they should have just made their own version of The Wizard of Oz, which is
Because
kind of weird
that's
to
what they
say,
did.
considering that Disney was originally going to produce the 19, or what eventually became the 1939 version of The Wizard of Oz. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it would have been much more beneficial if, with all of the tonal and story changes that they made, they should have just made their own adaptation of The Wizard of Oz, and then get to like the story of this movie. And like calling it Return to Oz is also odd, because then again, people are going to think like, oh, this is a hard sequel, like indisputable fact that this is a sequel to The Wizard of Oz, when it's really not. um
But like that's the problem. It is, because the film also is so discreet with how it mentions like events from the book slash film, that the events they're talking about are both them, but like not really at the same time. And
yeah,
that's what makes it hard, is because it's a sequel to the book, but like they're inherently trying to make it a pseudo sequel at the same time to the film, but like it's not doing enough of each, and I think that's its problem.
yeah, I wish they had picked one. If you're gonna make it if you're gonna make it more in line with the books, then just make your own adaptation of the books. Or if you're gonna make it a sequel to The Wizard of Oz, then just make it a fucking sequel to The Wizard of Oz. Like, them paying all that money just to use the visual imagery of the ruby slippers for like 10 minutes of the movie, when nothing else looks like anything from the original Wizard of Oz, just feels like a waste of time and money. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying that this movie is bad, because I don't really think it is. It's okay. I definitely think if I had grown up watching this movie, I might have a better appreciation of it. And this movie has a lot of elements that I kind of do respond to. I do like, you know, dark fantasy. It has a lot of 80s charm to it. Um,
Feels very Dark Crystal-ish
yeah,
to
and
me while watching it,
that's a movie
which is
that I
what I
really love.
liked.
And while I was watching this movie, I was still thinking that it was a Frank Oz movie, and that made a lot of sense to me because Frank Oz co-directed The Dark Crystal with Jim Henson. So I was like, this feels very much in line with, you know, that kind of movie. But I think, for what it's worth, I think the style of the movie isn't the worst part of it. It's just so jarring in contrast to The Wizard of Oz that the movie never gives you a chance to really separate it from that film before it's too late. And that really is something that this movie should have tried harder to do if it's not really going to take any real inspiration from the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I agree. And to add on to your points is at the end of the day, it does feel like they just made their own version of the Wizard of Oz too, because it essentially kind of feels like the same pattern where Dorothy goes to Oz and then she figures out what the issue is in Oz, and then she goes on her journey,
Meets
and then she
character after character.
meets character after character, which is Gump, TikTok, Jack Pumpkinhead, and then it leads to another character that we have to get to. And instead of what is it, the wizard, it's some of the worst names I could have ever thought about naming characters. The Gnome King
Oh,
and Mombi. Like, and the part is I actually kind of like the scenes in terms of like the way it was visualized. Like I
yeah.
like the claymation and like going back to the Dark Crystal aspects of the film. Like
Oh yeah, the
those, like
puppetry.
yeah, the puppetry. Like the aesthetic of this film is what actually made me the most interested. It's just it tries so hard to be and to not be a Wizard
A
of Oz
sequel to Wizard
film, but
of Oz.
also a sequel that it's just so hard to tell what it wants to be while it's also trying to tell us exactly what it wants to be. And so that's why I'm really confused because the tone is so clear, but the story is so not. And that's why I really don't know what to do.
I think that's one of the things that the Disney people and Frank Oz, fought about quite a bit because Frank Oz. Did I say Frank Oz? Hold on,
Yeah.
let me start that over again. I think that's one of the things that the Disney execs and Walter Murch were fighting over was that Walter Murch has been on record saying that he never wanted people to think that this was a direct sequel to The Wizard of Oz. Um, and so, but that's kind of hard to really take into consideration considering everything. And so I think that's sort of why this movie feels so at odds with itself at times is because Disney wanted one thing and then Walter Murch wanted something else. And I'm I don't know, there like I said, there's things that it's not the worst movie. I kind of like the story over the first one, um but I don't think the characters are as memorable. um and part of that is just the way that they're designed. There's just some of the characters don't really feel like they have a lot of like life to them, given even though they are real life puppets and stuff. Mainly Jack, and Jack Pumpkinhead and the Scarecrow. Like they don't have a lot of facial movement, and so that kind of like made me feel a little less connected to them and their characters. Um, but
It
anyways,
somewhat feels cheap, but doesn't at the same time.
yeah,
Like it's
and
really weird.
but the stuff that does work is like the Mombi stuff with her, having the collection of heads and putting them on and stuff. Like that's all really good. It looks good on a technical level, and the chicken is surprisingly like a good character. And yeah, I also do really like the way they visualized the gnome king. Like it gets a little muddled halfway through the climax because it stops being claymation and then it just becomes like a regular actor in like makeup. I think they could have done a little bit more to make him look more like, you
Make
know,
the transit, like make
yeah,
give it
make
a
the transition.
transition.
Yeah, because
Like,
I think I like blinked and I missed it when he like just
so did
became a
I, by the
regular
way. I'm like,
dude,
dude, what the
and then
fuck?
I kind of was just like, oh, I was. I
Yeah,
remember
I'm just like, when did some fat dude who's painted come onto my
I
screen?
remember I remember kind of just sitting and looking at the screen, and I was just like, I was like, wasn't he like
In the
stop motion
wall?
before? Yeah,
was
that
it
too. I was
was he
just
not like Zordon or some shit where it was
yeah,
just his face moving?
it was just so odd to me, and um but I mean, I like the effect overall, and I think he's a really interesting villain in contrast to um the Wicked Witch of the West. Um which, I forgot to mention Margaret Hamilton is really good as the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But overall, I just think it's a uninspired movie that really just doesn't know what it wants to be.
Yeah.
And I just really didn't find myself enjoying watching it as much as I liked the tone, just because the way they envisioned the world itself was just so lackluster and boring and uninteresting that it kind of makes the tone just like boring at the end of the day. Because like watching Dorothy walk around like this deserted Emerald City with everyone turned into stone, like I'm thinking the whole time, like, damn, bro, this is really kind of fucking dark, like some Doctor Who type shit. But at the same time, the film is like so void of the consequences of what it's trying to tell me, because the set design, while it's good in some areas, like the only people that are stoned in this giant city are the only ones that are important to the story, which are the Lion, the Tin Man, and then I forgot who the third one was. But it's all these people who have some relevance to the plot, story, or characters, and so it's just so weird having them tell me that this entire city that comes back to life at the end, where you literally see thousands of these fucking people just like come into this city square at the end, are all these stone people, but you only see like three stone people, that's also taken over by like these wheel cart people. Like it's just such a weird world that's so dissociated from what everyone knows Oz to be, but it also isn't confidently setting up its own world. It's just this jarring mess for me, and like I don't know how else like to feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the exact same way. I don't think there's enough connective tissue between this one and the first one, and it also it's important to note that it's a big departure from the heavy like studio based photography and set design. Like there's a lot of stuff in this that is more on location, and it just doesn't really feel it doesn't give off the same feel of like whimsy as the first one. That kind of takes away from the effect of Oz. And as much as I do appreciate the difference in aesthetic, I think that's an important thing about Oz that this movie kind of misses a bit. Because I still feel like there was a way to make it kind of feel similar in that regard without losing the darker tone and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I it's this movie's fine. Maybe once in a blue moon I'll rewatch it. Because I like I said, I do really like dark fantasy 80s stuff. But this one is probably not on the top of my list, and I think there are more interesting films in the series.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And honestly, I think this film could have had a place, like at least somewhere I could have liked the film, like you were saying before. If I'd grown up with it, maybe I'd kind of viewed it a little bit differently. and I like the ideas, and like I like the ideas that they try to bring forward and they try to execute. It's just I don't think they successfully do any of them, and that's what I kind of have a hard time grasping. And like I don't want to feel like I'm bashing the film because I don't feel like I am, but I feel like it is kind of bashing because like I hate talking shit about a child actor because child actors are really hard to come by. That's why like when you see a famous one, there's a reason why they're famous. Lucas Tremblay, but that's neither here or there. Like, what's her name? McKenna Grace. She's fucking in every movie I'm seeing all of a sudden.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, she's gonna be in that new Hunger Games. I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, "Oh, she's in this."
She's in the new Five Nights
Scream.
at Freddy's. She's in the new Scream. Like she's in all these new movies coming out. But yeah. Do you just want to get to final ratings and our reviews or like
Yeah,
our final wrap ups?
yeah.
Sweet. You go first.
Ah, damn it, I don't have it up yet.
Neither do I. Okay, I got
Okay,
it.
okay, you go first.
The Wizard of Oz, I gave 3 stars, and my review, Oz ain't really all that wonderful. I think we can agree on that. But now I gotta pull up Return to Oz because I'm a slow bitch. Alright, I gave it 1 star, and my review is I genuinely have no clue what I just watched. And
Look at the
that's how I still
comments.
feel. I saw your comment. It was pretty peak. Pure cinema. It is. It is. What about you, Leo?
All right, I gave The Wizard of Oz 4 stars out of 5. I wasn't really sure what I was gonna rate this while I was watching, but eventually I decided on 4. Um, while obviously it's a very important piece of cinematic history, there are a couple of things while watching that are just given how old the movie is, I still think it holds up shockingly well. But with all of like the behind the scenes stuff and some of the moments where I was kind of like, this doesn't work quite as well for me now that I'm older. But I still have I still had a good time watching it, and it's hard to forget the first time you see The Wizard of Oz, and you're just kind of like blown away by it, as a child. Anyways, Return to Oz, I gave 3 out of 5. Like I said, it's not necessarily a bad movie. It's just kind of fighting with
That's
itself.
way too generous, my brother.
Well, you were a little too critical of both of them, but anyways, I yeah,
Well,
it's
no,
watchable.
The Wizard of Oz is. I try to separate film from filmmaker from personal life, but I feel like Wizard of Oz is just so hard not to that it just like it makes it hard for me to watch sometimes because I know like what Judy Garland was put through to like be in that moment, no matter like how much I enjoy it. Like whenever I know like I feel her being vulnerable, like I don't it's hard because I never know if it's her being vulnerable with the movie or being vulnerable because of everything going on and she has to let the emotions out somehow, you know? Like and that's what I struggle with sometimes. So that's why I'm a little bit harsher on that, but no, definitely on Return to Oz I'm harsh as fuck.
Yeah, no, I get it. And obviously, it's a tough ask to go into Return to Oz and expect much of anything.
I was expecting
If
Judy to come back.
I'm pretty sure she'd been long dead, but
Yeah, I think she died in 69.
I don't even remember. Anyways, but yeah, anyways, so Return to Oz, I think I just like mostly its aesthetic and tone. I mean, I think the structure of the story is a little bit more easy to follow. But I think it introduced some, interesting concepts that kind of kept me intrigued, I'll say. And it's not a movie that I'm, you know, super excited to return to, but if given the chance, I think I would, I wouldn't complain about having to rewatch it, if that makes sense. All right. With that said, let's go ahead and talk about what we're watching next week.
Watching your
Speaking
mom.
speaking
Sorry.
of Speaking of Five Nights at Freddy's, we're watching that movie.
God
Because
damn it, bro! I totally
because
forgot we were watching it.
because the second one is coming out.
Fuck!
Um,
God
I
damn
have
it, bro!
not seen this movie. I heard that it was. I don't want to say good, but I
Dog
heard that
water.
people liked it quite a bit. Obviously, it did well enough to warrant a sequel. So I'm interested. I know a little bit about the video game series. Not a lot, but yeah, I'm excited to see if this movie is really good or not.
Oh, God help our
Is
souls,
you
bro.
seem to have already decided.
No, bro, I've seen it twice. I'm gonna watch it again for the show, but God help my soul, bro. I really do not like the movie. Like this is coming from someone like I haven't played like the games where it gets into like the deeper lore stuff that like the movies take from. But like I played the first few games when they first came out and I was a big fan of them. But like these movies are just like everything you hate in a PG-13 horror film.
Is it PG-13?
Yes, it's PG-13.
Oh, there's okay. That's kind of
Yes.
annoying.
But yeah, without further ado, let us know what you guys thought of Wizard of Oz and Return of Wizard of Oz, and we'll
Not
see
what
you
it's
guys
called, but
next
okay.
week. Oh my god, bro! I knew I was gonna do it again. Fuck this shit. I'm done. I'm done talking about these movies. Peace.